The New York Mets winning streak stays alive at 8 games thanks to 2 monster home runs by Mark Vientos.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. I'll tell you what, the New York Mets have not had a left side of the infield this good since the days of David Wright and Jose Reyes. It's a completely different tandem, but here you are, Francisco Lindor and Mark Vientos. They are carrying the Mets offense. What a game on Friday night for Vientos. This is the game of the season for him for sure, but just another incredible moment in what's been a season full then for the New York Mets. You jump out to a 2-0 lead. Shamanai gives up a 2-run homer. You battle back, you get 2 more. Shamanai gives up another 2-run homer. The game stays there, and you start to feel like, all right, are the Reds going to sneak away with this thing? It's inevitable that the Mets are going to lose again at some point. They've won 7 games in a row. But sure enough, what was inevitable is the New York Mets, because in extra innings, Mark Vientos comes up, puts together a fantastic at-bat, and sends everybody home happy with another 2-run homer. It was a game of 2-run homers, and the Mets hit the last one that counted the most. Vientos gets mobbed by his teammates. Shirt gets ripped off. They said they don't know who pulled that shirt off. We all know it's Pete Alonso. He's got a weird fetish when it comes to that. You can just see it on his face. As soon as the guy's running third, it's in Pete's head. You got to rip that shirt off. Got to see what's going on under there. Man, there's been some awkward boats with that over the years. And luckily for this one, I think it must have been easy. I don't know if Vientos loosened some of the buttons around in third. But man, that was a really fun game. And we'll talk a lot about Vientos in the next segment as well, because what he's done this season, the kid's going to win a Silver Slugger. At least he should. We'll add that to my list of award debates that I need to continue to fight for this Mets team down the stretch. Let's start this game off, though, at the very beginning. It all opened up, as I mentioned, with the Vientos home run, but Francisco Lindor was the runner-on for Vientos. Extends his on-base streak. He now tied Pete Alonso's record from back in 2019 for the longest single-season on-base streak in franchise history. So he's going for a little bit more history on Saturday if he can get to 35 games. And it was a really great moment for me because you're now seeing the fan base just get behind this movement, right? Francisco Lindor is your MVP. So when he gets into the box, from singing My Girl to MVP chants raining, and it doesn't take much for Francisco Lindor to get the crowd going. Just a flick of the wrist, flares one into the outfield for a base hit, and that's how you start the night with great energy in that ballpark. And then Vientos obviously brings the house down for the first time with the 2-run shot. Shaw Manaea on the hill, I thought that's all the Mets needed, honestly. And the crazy thing is, Manaea pitched a lot better than his line would suggest. He made 2 mistakes. I mean, that's the reality. And then some costly walks. But he retired the lineup in order first time through. Double play a ball to erase. Can't remember if that was a base hit or a walk. But regardless, retires the side in order in each of the first 3 innings. Then in the 4th inning, leadoff walks always come back to haunt you. And Elly De La Cruz made sure of it, hitting a 2-run homer. But Manaea settled in, retired the next 3 batters to get through that 4th, set the side down in order again in the 5th and the 6th inning. Bottom of the 6th inning, the Mets put together a 2-out rally. And they were fortunate, too, because Pete Alonso hit one down the right field line that looked like a flyout. Was it Jake Fraley? Made the diving, tumbling catch, but as he tumbled, the ball flew out of his glove, and Alonso was gifted a double there. Then Jose Iglesias, the Mets' best hitter with 2 outs, comes up. He rips a base hit. Alonso scores as there was a bad throw from left, and he beats it. Iglesias advances to second on the throw. JD Martinez, who's back from paternity, he comes up with the clutch 2-out hit. Flares one to right. Iglesias comes home to score, 4-2 Mets. And we thought that was it. At least I did. Like, all right, Manaea's going to go out there, put up a scoreless 7th. We'll see who's going to come out for the 8th. Edwin Diaz for the 9th. Let's wrap this thing up 4-2. Well, Manaea, again, got burned by a walk and a homer. He struck out a couple batters in between, but that home run proved costly. Game was tied up. Reed Garrett comes on, and one of the more underrated elements of this game is Reed Garrett looks like he's back. His stuff is crisp again. He's getting those swing and misses out of the zone. That's the thing with Reed Garrett. He needs to pitch outside of the zone. You could say he walks too many batters. He needs to do that. But there's a difference between effectively pitching out of the zone and throwing non-competitive pitches. And when Garrett has been bad this year, it's because he's letting hitters off, giving them pitches that they can easily take, which puts them in hitters' counts where he has to go at them or walk them, and then he gets himself in trouble. Now, lately, you're seeing that really good tight slider again, just under the zone. The guys are swinging through. Obviously, the splitter being his best pitch. Fastball when he throws it up in the zone. We're starting to see the Reed Garrett that was lights out early in the season, and that is huge for this team because we still don't know what's going to happen with Daniel Nunez. There's a little bit of optimism. You might get him back for the playoffs or for the last couple weeks, but you just don't know. If Garrett can step up and be that guy again and be your real 8th inning guy when you still have Jose Butto and Phil Maton to complement Edwin Diaz, that's going to take this team a lot further than they would be without him. So hopefully Garrett is on the right track. He pitched a scoreless 8th inning after getting that final out of the 7th, struck out 2 in the 8th. So a great outing by him. Edwin Diaz comes on for the top of the 9th. He strikes out the side. And more notably than that, 2 of those strikeouts were on 100-mile-per-hour fastballs. So it's great to see the velocity all of a sudden returning to Edwin. Maybe they just had to listen to him, pitch him a little bit more. He's locking in at the right time. There was a point this season where I ranked, or maybe it was coming into the season, the top 10 most valuable or best players on the New York Mets. I can't remember how I phrased that. Maybe it was most important. And I remember ranking Edwin Diaz above Kodai Senga. And I think it was best players. But regardless, the reason that I did is because I just talked about the value that a lights out Edwin Diaz can bring to you. In a pennant run down the stretch where every game matters, if Edwin Diaz is back to being himself and is locking down all these games, that's going to be very beneficial to this team, especially if you do make it into October. Now, his brother comes on for the bottom of the 9th, pitched a scoreless inning. So that ends up being a cool piece of history because the Mets win the game. And Edwin Diaz talked out there about being able to keep the lineup cards and how cool it was to finally pitch in the same game together and then in the same inning. And then you have Jose Butto comes on the top of the 10th, and he did a great job stranding the ghost runner, gets a couple ground outs and a pop-up, keeps the ball in the infield, keeps that runner from scoring. So all the Mets needed, the bottom of the 10th inning, was to advance the runner to third and then bring that runner in. But Mark Vientos, as we already mentioned, just decided to do it all himself, hits that huge home run. And again, a great at-bat. Okay, Mark Vientos fouled off 4 pitches in that at-bat, and it was the 8th pitch of the at-bat that he hit out, and it wasn't even a terrible pitch. Yes, it was a fastball inside that he got around on, and he made it look bad. But if you're Justin Wilson in a 2-2 count and you throw that ball inside, it was not in the zone, it's not exactly a complete miss. But Mark Vientos is locked in. He was locked in that whole at-bat, and he got something he could handle. He crushed it. Now this team's won 8 in a row, and you look around, they gained some ground, but also more importantly, they kept their standing because the Braves won. The Braves beat the Blue Jays. Had the Mets lost this game, they'd be right back out of a playoff spot. They'd be a game back. Now they're even with the Braves still. The Padres won, so they're keeping them 3 games away. And the Diamondbacks lost. They lost to the Houston Astros. That's the team that we talked about really being able to gain ground on this weekend because they're playing a series against the Astros. Funny enough, the Astros were due to win because the Reds just swept them. So now the Astros get some vengeance on the Diamondbacks, winning 8-0. And now the Mets are only a game and a half behind Arizona, and they have an extra game to play. The Diamondbacks have played 1 more game this season. So this is a really good spot for the Mets. You're not just going neck and neck with the Braves. The Diamondbacks are a team that can fall out of this thing. They have 7 games coming up against the Milwaukee Brewers, a really good team. I believe they also have a series against the Dodgers, and then they close the season against the Padres. So the Diamondbacks are not this shoo-in to make it. They were super hot for a really long time, but just like we saw the Mets go through a little bit of a down period in the beginning of August, If that happens to the Diamondbacks now in the beginning of September, their cold streak could cripple them. The Mets got to keep taking advantage. This is a series against the Reds where you really want to take every game. They did the job here in game one. We'll see what they can do in game two. But in the next segment, we got to talk more about Mark Vientos because he has been arguably the second best story of this season for the Mets behind Francisco Lindor's MVP campaign. I want to talk about him a little bit more in the next segment. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. We have something a little bit different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with YouTube TV's base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. Let me say that again for you. With the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. Again, this is for all FanDuel customers. All you have to do is bet $5 and you get that 3-week free trial. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel anytime. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and download America's #1 sportsbook. Stay up to date with all the latest in the world of sports by checking out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Our goal is to get to 10,000 subs by the end of the season, so I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. All right, so let's talk about Mark Vientos. There was a lot of discussion on the game today about how he is having the best offensive season of any third baseman in baseball. Now, I am as big of a homer as anyone. Just listen to me talk about Francisco Lindor in this MVP race. But I will acknowledge when someone gets it wrong on the Mets. And I do want to throw a caveat to the discussion that Gary Cohen and Ron Darling were having during the broadcast about Vientos being the best offensive third baseman in baseball. Jose Ramirez still exists, and he's on pace for a 40-40 season. He's scored 101 runs. He's driven in 106 already. And he's not that far behind Vientos in the rate stats, like WRC plus, and he's played way more games. Jose Ramirez leading the Guardians to a first place finish likely in the AL Central and potentially a bye. When you look at the core around him, he's the best third baseman in baseball. So I just had to say that. I do. But is Mark Vientos the second best offensive third baseman in baseball this year? There's a case to be made for sure. He's hitting 289, 342 on base, 563 slug, 24 home runs, 62 RBIs, 20 doubles, 50 runs scored. You look at his home runs per plate appearance and extrapolate that over 650, that would be a 42 home run season is what he's on pace for this year. Now, for those of you who have been longtime listeners of this show, you might remember back in 2021 when we were talking a lot about Mark Vientos. I had Jordan Grossman on a lot for our Friday Farm Reports. He used to be one of our social media coordinators on the show, and we would talk prospects every week. And we were always raving about Vientos. And I said so many different times throughout his development, it was sort of the tagline whenever I talked about Vientos when he was a prospect. This is a guy that's going to have 40 home run power in the big leagues. We're seeing that. What I never thought would happen is that he would play a passable third base, which he has. And I never thought he would be this much of a complete hitter. I didn't expect him to hit 290. I would have thought, 250 with a 320 on base, but a lot of slug. That was my expectation for Mark Vientos. And he has just blown that out of the water this year. You compare his stats to other third basemen. Fourth in average among third basemen have gotten at least 100 plate appearances. Luis Rengifo leading that group, but he's been hurt for a while. Jose Miranda, and then Alec Boehm. And he's only a point behind Alec Boehm right now. Now, I want to say right now on September 7th that if 2 months from now, Alec Boehm gets the Silver Slugger, which he probably will because voters are going to be biased and they're going to go to the Phillies because they're the best team in the National League, or at least one of them. But Vientos has him in every single stat, potentially even average. I'm going to be livid. And I shouldn't be, but I get too caught up in these awards. And Mark Vientos has earned a Silver Slugger this year with the way that he has swung the bat. It's been incredible to watch. He's fifth in on-base percentage among third basemen. This is in all of baseball. He's first in slug, 19 points better than Rafael Devers, who's been doing it for years and years and years now as, one of maybe the best offensive third baseman in baseball. That's a title that Devers has had. Here's Vientos showing that he certainly can match this guy offensively. And then you look at his OPS, 905, the top mark in the sport at his position. His WRC plus top mark as well at 151. WRC plus is weighted runs created plus, measures hitters on a league average of 100. So he's 51% better than your league average hitter. Do you know how many guys in Major League Baseball this season have a WRC plus over 150? There's 15. Here are the names: Judge, Soto, Witt, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Brent Rooker, Shohei Ohtani, Yordan Alvarez, Marcelo Zuna, Jock Peterson, Gunnar Henderson, Christian Yelich, Carlos Correa, Mookie Betts, Ketel Marte, and Mark Vientos. How's that for a list to belong to? Thinking about where he has come from, this has been such an amazing development for this franchise. Second round pick all the way back in 2017. Signs for $1.5 million, forgoes his commitment to go to the University of Miami, plays some short season ball, has his first full season in 2021. Little bit of a rough year, 711 OPS, only 12 home runs in 111 games. He has to sit on that for a while. Misses 2020 because of the COVID season, so no one got to play. 2021, they have him skip high A. This was the beginning of the Mets valuing Brett Baty as a prospect over Mark Vientos. And you say, what are you talking about? They gave him an advanced assignment. Part of that was they thought Vientos could handle it, but the other part of it was they wanted Brett Baty playing every day third base in high A. So Vientos has to advance ahead of him. And that was the track. Vientos gets the promotion when Brett Baty is ready to get promoted. They had a little bit of overlap in Double-A together. At the end of the 2021 season, Vientos gets called up to Triple-A for 11 games. And then 2022, he spends the entire season in Triple-A. Hits 24 home runs in 101 games, has an 877 OPS, does everything right to maybe get a big league call up at the end of the season. Meanwhile, Brett Baty spends the whole year in Double-A to start, is the best player in that league, has a fantastic season. Gets called up to AAA, plays 6 games. Louis Guillorme ends up going on the IL. He was platooning with Eduardo Escobar at the time, so they needed a left-handed bat to complement him. Here comes Brett Baty, skipping over Vientos and getting that promotion to the big leagues first. Now, there was multiple reasons for that. Baty being more advanced with the glove and the fact that he was left-handed. But still, if you're Vientos, you're thinking, man, I played 100 games in AAA. I've hit 24 bombs. Why am I not getting that shot? He does get a September call-up, but it was limited playing time, just trying to fill a role that Darren Ruff could not. 2023, right back in AAA, while Brett Baty starts the season with the big league club. Well, actually, didn't start the season with the big league club. I'm sorry. A week in, he was with the big league club and got the keys to third base. They traded Eduardo Escobar to really just give the job to Brett Baty. He struggles with it. Vientos gets some opportunities at DH, but never gets consistent playing time under Buck Showalter. And we still don't know what they have in him. Down the stretch, he did play, close to every day, as it was a lost season. And he did flash some potential in September when he had like 6 home runs in that month. And that sort of gave us some hope about what he'd be coming into this season. But even then, they didn't give him any keys to a job in spring training. We thought he was going to be the DH. He led the team in home runs in spring training, but JD Martinez gets signed a week before opening day. And instead of even giving Vientos the beginning of the season, when JD Martinez was going to start on a minor league assignment and then got hurt, Zach Short makes the team over him. And Vientos goes to AAA. Now, you could say, man, the Mets just mismanaged the situation from jump. Why wasn't Mark Vientos the opening day third baseman, or at least the opening day DH? Why didn't they have him there for the first month? Maybe the Mets win some more games early in the season. And you're probably right. At the same time, I don't think Vientos is this if not for that last emotion, for having that chip on his shoulder, and for getting to play the beginning of the season in AAA with Jose Iglesias. I mean, there might need to be a documentary about what happened in Syracuse for the first couple months of the season, because the Syracuse Mets were the best team in that league. They won the first half standings, and a lot of it was due to some of those guys. And now it's Iglesias and Vientos, who are starting together in Syracuse, who are half of the Mets starting infield in a pennant race. I think having Iglesias as a teammate this year has been huge for Mark Vientos. Having Francisco Lindor take him under his wing, all those things. And getting that assignment to AAA where he was asked, play third base every day. We believe that you can handle that position. And what the Mets were doing is they were formulating a contingency plan for Brett Baty. Brett Baty had the keys, and he showed us defensively that he was really good at the position. But offensively, he did not hold his own. And so it becomes a platoon situation. And what does Vientos do? He thrives in the platoon role. So much so that it becomes undeniable. They give him a shot. They give him the keys to third base for the first time in his career. Really just the keys to a position in a big league season for the first time. What he's done with that opportunity, it's been unbelievable. And if you think about next year and beyond, Mark Vientos and David Peterson really are these great sort of late development stories, guys that were high draft picks that the Mets have put a lot into, who dealt with some struggles early on in their big league careers. But now they have found their footing and they are established. And that's huge moving forward. You have 5 years of control of Mark Vientos beyond this season. 5 years. He won't be a free agent until, what is it, 2030, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah, 2030. Won't hit arbitration until 2027. So the Mets, if they wanted to, this is a guy you approach for an extension, honestly. You buy out those arbitration years, couple years of free agency, and Mark Vientos might just be your, I don't know, first baseman, third baseman in the future. Who knows? But here Vientos is. He's put together the best season at third base the Mets have had since David Wright. I look back, I was like, who else would be even close? Todd Frazier in 2018, that was like the best, or was it 2019? He had 2 seasons with the Mets. One of them, he had 21 home runs, had a 772 OPS, and drove in 67. I actually think that was 2019. But his WAR was like 2.5 in 2018 and 2.1 in 2019. So he wasn't that valuable. But again, like that was almost as good as you got because it was league average production on both sides. And, a little bit of pop. Vientos has already cleared that home run total. He's going to clear that RBI total in less games. He's been such a sensation for this team. And this game tonight was the proof of that. Just an awesome performance. So hats off to Vientos. He should win a Silver Slugger this year. It'll be fascinating to see what his role is with the Mets long term, because that's a whole Pete Alonso conversation. But you can just keep him at third base if you want to. He might get better at the position, and it doesn't hurt to have the best offensive third baseman in baseball, not named Jose Ramirez. Sorry, Garrett. Just can't go all the way with you on that one. But again, really great stuff from Vientos. The final segment today, though, I want to go over a couple other news items. Jeff McNeil got hit in the wrist tonight. Could he be out, and what happens if he is? And the Mets announced when Paul Blackburn will make his return. How does that impact how the Mets line up their rotation from here on out? I'll go through those things in just a minute. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience are what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's guaranteed fit is only available to U.S. customers. If you're an everyday listener to the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks on the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. You can also take part in our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways. And you get the lineup graphic sent to your phone each day so you notice the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. All right, so Jeff McNeil got hit on the wrist tonight. Exited the game because his wrist swelled up. Iglesias finished it out. The Mets will send him in for test, and we will see. Imagine he's probably day-to-day regardless, but this could be a huge loss for the Mets because it really does impact your versatility, your flexibility. And the fact is, McNeil's been swinging a pretty good bat throughout the entire second half. So losing him, that's going to really hurt a big strength of this team. I mean, yes, at second base, Iglesias can play every day. He'll give you the great defense. He'll continue to swing it well. But I think part of what has made Iglesias so effective is not having to shoulder that everyday playing time. I think you're talking about a guy that's in his 30s and putting him in for matchups that favor him, that's not a bad thing for this guy. So as much as you could just say, oh, look, Iglesias starts and the Mets have plenty of outfielders, they'll be fine. Jeff McNeil makes this team better. Being able to start Jeff McNeil at second base, move him out to left, start him in left, move him to second, have Iglesias move from second to third. Like we have seen the Mets go to that strategy a lot. And so this puts a lot more pressure on Vientos defensively to hang over at third base. Now, granted, if they want to, they got Pablo Reyes. They can put him at third. They can mix things up, or they can put him at second and Iglesias at third. I'm not sure which position is more favorable to Reyes. But this is a big deal for the Mets to have to overcome this. If you're thinking this means that Acuna is coming up, it is an option. I don't think they would go to that option. If they wanted Acuna to develop in the minor leagues, they probably feel his bat's not ready anyway. Yes, he would give you some of that roster flexibility that you have with McNeil, but he's not going to play over any of these guys. So I don't necessarily think he's the answer. Really, it's just more of your outfielders getting some runs. So more Tyrone Taylor, more Harrison Bader to complement Winker and Marte. And then beyond that, it's just Iglesias every day. Not the worst thing in the world. Can the Mets afford to lose McNeil more than some of their other players? Yes. But this team doesn't get better. It does get worse. Who would replace him? If I had to make a guess, my assumption would probably be DJ Stewart. And I only say that because he gives you another left-handed bat that you can put into the lineup at some point. Can come off the bench if you need him to. And I do think that this front office values Stewart's bat and the fact that he puts himself in good situations, draws the walks, everything else, does have some power he can tap into. And would I be shocked if DJ Stewart comes up if there was a game down the stretch where Stewart hit a big home run for the Mets? No, he does have that ability. But I think realistically, it's just more of everybody else getting those opportunities. So yeah, this is something to monitor. Hopefully it's just a day-to-day thing. His, wrist clears the x-rays. What's crazy too is Jeff McNeil is as armored up as anybody. And that ball hit, I believe, at least from the replay, it looked like it hit, some type of a wrist guard, but still had to exit. So we will wait and see what happens there. One other name to just mention, the Mets did pick up Jose Azocar off of waivers. And who did they put on the IL, the 60? I think they transferred somebody. Was it Sean Reed Foley? Apologize, I didn't put that in my notes today. They moved somebody to the 60-day IL, and I think it was Foley to clear a roster spot for Azocar. And this is another speedster. He stole 24 bases in 51 games in the PCL this year. So if they wanted more speed to their team, maybe it'd be Azocar that came up. He is on the 40 now. So if they view or they value Azocar's base stealing ability over Reyes, maybe Reyes becomes your backup utility infielder and Azocar becomes more of your pinch runner. But again, this is more a situation where if McNeil is out, the top 12 guys are just going to play more. It's more Vientos. Really, it's Vientos probably every day, every inning. Iglesias every day, every inning. And obviously you don't have McNeil in the outfield anymore. Last thing to close the show. Carlos Mendoza announced that Paul Blackburn will start on Monday against the Blue Jays. So this pushes David Peterson back to Tuesday, which would also potentially mean he's not going to pitch in that series against the Phillies in Philadelphia next weekend. Although there's an off day on Thursday. So the Mets, if they wanted to, they still could slide Peterson into that series. When I initially heard the news about Blackburn starting on Monday, I did not like it. Then I remember the off day, did the math on it. It's okay. If David Peterson was going to get extra rest in one of the next two starts, makes sense for it to be this next one. And also Paul Blackburn probably flew out ahead of the team already or will at some point this weekend. So he'll already be in Toronto adjusting and being ready for that game on Monday. Peterson stays with the team. It makes sense in that respect. I would hope David Peterson still pitches in that series against the Phillies. I feel a lot better about their chances if it's Quintana, Severino, and Peterson instead of Quintana, Severino, and Blackburn. And what this would also do by starting Blackburn on Monday, you could actually have him pitch out of the bullpen for the first couple games of that series in Philly and still be available to pitch on another turn. We talked about this a lot on yesterday's show on Sean and I don't want to bore you with the details too much, but essentially I think Sean and I is going to start on regular rest from here on out, which would mean he is going to start the first game of that series after the one in Philadelphia. So whoever doesn't pitch on that Sunday is going to get extra rest. Or you can just eliminate that pitcher for a little bit from the rotation. So the Mets could go to Manaea in that series in DC, Quintana, Severino, all on regular rest. No need to pitch Paul Blackburn until the first game of the 4-game set against the Phillies. You slide him back into the rotation then, and David Peterson still pitches in Philly. And because there's an off day on the following Monday, I know I'm really getting deep into the schedule here, you still could line up that series against the Braves where you would have Severino, Peterson, and Manaea pitch. In my opinion, you got to make that happen because that's the most important series of the season. We'll see how everything shakes out. I will acknowledge too, though, I don't think all these decisions are mapped out that far in advance. There's scenarios, there's things that come into it. And one of those scenarios, one of the factors, probably a better way to describe it, is David Peterson's innings. He's at 98 1/3 in the big leagues this year, but he also pitched in the minor leagues. So on the season as a whole, he's at 122 innings. For his career, he set a career high last year with 148 innings pitched between the majors and the minors. So he's getting close to pushing up against that. And he would be a guy I think that the Mets might evaluate and say, yeah, let's give him an extra day. And they could do that throughout the rest of the season. It's better to have David Peterson sharp than to ride him too hard and he doesn't give you the best performance. Bottom line for the road ahead, Quintana, Severino, Blackburn, then probably Peterson and I. That's how they're going to line it up for the rest of this series and into the next one. Quintana and Severino got to get the job done to finish this series strong against the Reds. There's no way to game plan for Cincinnati right now. We have no idea who's pitching. I don't think they know who's pitching. They are just trying to survive. That makes them hard to game plan against because you just don't know who's coming out of the bullpen at what time. And so in some ways, it kind of makes them a really sneaky, dangerous team. But the Mets clearly are the better team. They got 2 starting pitchers ready to go here. Hopefully can give them length. A bullpen that's been much better during this winning streak. Hopefully they keep it going on Saturday afternoon. I'll be back for another show tomorrow, breaking down everything that happens from that game and the rest of the NL wildcard race. So make sure if you are listening today, follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Goal again is to get to 10,000 subs by the end of the season. So I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. You can follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen or your first watch every day, not for your second watch. Head over to YouTube and check out the first ever 24/7 streaming channel that covers everything in the world of sports. Talking about Locked On Sports today with our local hosts from each team, league-wide hosts from each league. Find Locked On Sports today streaming 24/7 on YouTube.